Even if you're not familiar with the Hillsong name, you're probably familiar, excuse me, with their music. For decades, its world-famous praise and worship team have released songs that you can hear in churches across the globe every Sunday. And according to senior pastor Brian Houston, the best is yet to come.
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders.
Hillsong Church is known for their praise and worship music. They've released more than 90 albums, many of them achieving gold and platinum status. Senior pastor Brian Houston started Hillsong in 1983 with only 70 people.
In the foundation, and he can add strength and stability.
But his success has not been without bumps and bruises. In his book, Live, Love, Lead, Brian shares the good times and some of the most disappointing ones he's faced in the last 30 years and reminds us that God can use anything in surprising ways.
Well, once again, the book is called Live, Love, Lead, and to talk more about it is the author, Brian Houston. Brian, great to have you with us.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Terry. Nice to meet you.
You talk so much in the book about really the incredible story of what God did with Hillsong and continues to do. But at 20, you said you were probably the most unlikely person to be leading a megachurch like this. Where were you at in your 20s?
Well, it's true. There's nothing, as far as I see, about my teenage years, my younger life, where I would have been picked for leadership. I was, like a lot of young people, I was insecure. I had a desperate desire to serve God, but I didn't really necessarily feel like I had the confidence. So it's been an amazing grace story.
But you always had, I found this so interesting in your book, you always had the desire to pastor a church.
Always.
And God planted that in your heart.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
I see that as a huge advantage in life because, sadly, so many people, they don't know who they are, they don't know, why they're here, they don't know where they're going. And yet, from the age of, well, as long as I can remember, but let's say 5, I wanted to lead a church, I wanted to build a church, and it's a huge thing when you can honestly say, this one thing I do.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like Paul said, yeah.
I mean, people long for that call in their lives. You now have churches, how many around the world?
We're in 15 nations. So
15 nations.
Yeah, significant cities in 15 different nations.
So London, Kiev,
yes.
New York,
Yeah.
I mean, all around the world. What is it that draws people to the Hillsong message?
It's honestly the grace of God. I really don't think, well, our message, by the way, the Hillsong message is the message, the message of Jesus, yeah. So we don't preach a different message, hopefully, than anyone who preaches Jesus Christ. But there is something about, I guess, the tone of the church, hopefully the heart of the church, the inclusive spirit of the church, that just seems to draw people. And the incredible thing is you go to Kiev or London or Stockholm or, Paris or here in New York City or LA, and it's amazing. We seem to reach the same demographic of people.
Yeah.
And it's very diverse, the crowd that we reach.
The hunger's the same.
The hunger's the same.
The heart of man, yeah.
That's it.
I think sometimes people look at someone who has experienced the level of success that you have, God-given though it is, and they think, well, that just happened over a window of time and it's all been wonderful and good, but not without lots of bumps along the way.
That's absolutely right.
I mean, as I read your book and you tell the story of your father, yes. I mean, my heart just went out to you. Share a little bit of that story.
Well, growing up, my dad was a very prominent pastor in
your hero, really.
Australia, New Zealand, absolutely my hero. And in fact, I used to watch him go off to preach somewhere, and I just always thought, one day I want to do that, one day I want to do that. So when I was 45, I'm 61 now, my father was overseas, and one of the key people on my team, on my staff, we had our normal weekly conversation, our discussion, and at the end he said, "Oh, Brian, there's just one more thing." He said, it's about your father. And just the tone, the way he said it, I just sensed there was something going to be wrong. But what he told me, I could never have imagined. He told me that a complaint had come in that 30 years or so before that, back in the 1970s, that my father was being accused of abusing a child. It was the worst day of my life. I talk about it in my book because, I just really believe we help people through our tough times and through our good times. Yeah. And so I had to confront my own father and ask him.
You had to ask him to step down.
Pardon?
You had to ask him to step down.
I had to fire him, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How did God meet you in that dark place? Because I can't imagine. I mean, as I read the book, I tried to put myself in your position to have someone go from being your hero to doing something so desperately unimaginable to you. I just couldn't even comprehend the issue of emotion that must have coursed through you. How did you handle that?
Well, you know, it's now 15 years on since I learned that, and 16 years on. But to be honest, it's still a journey. I mean, it was horrific. I can't think of too much worse than finding out that your father was a paedophile. And so, yeah, it's still an ongoing journey, but I've never doubted the grace of God. I've never, ever doubted that God is bigger, that God is greater, and that he could sustain me. And so that's what keeps you going forward.
Well, it doesn't. Even the way that you had to then share this with your children about their granddad. And I mean, that, you know, when the enemy is so wicked, I mean, he comes into our midst and tries to destroy everything that we know about God in our hearts and minds. And a big part of what he uses in that is shame. Yes. And this surely would have been something where the enemy could have caught you in an act. Talk about shame, because, you know, for a lot of people who are struggling with things, the thing that keeps us from wholeness is shame. We're afraid to bring it to the light. But in the light is the freedom.
Absolutely. You know, sin is something that we do, and guilt is something we feel. You know, I feel guilty, but shame is something you carry. You think about it, people may say to someone, shame on you. So they put shame on you. So you carry it, which leads to condemnation. Now, if a building's condemned, it's unfit for use. So a lot of people, they feel unfit for use because for whatever reason, you know, guilt, something that they feel, and shame, something that they carry, has taken a hold of their life. But again, the amazing thing about the grace of Jesus Christ is freedom from shame. And we have to walk in it. You know, we can carry shame or we can walk out of it.
He said he came to set the captive free.
Yes, he did.
And that's so much of what we hear in the the music of Hillsong. And when I think of Hillsong, I think of praise and worship, because those songs are sung in my own church and in the churches of so many of us. And God actually used the disappointment and the surprise of a leader leaving, a key the leader of your worship team, and yet God did an amazing thing.
You mean, right back in 1995, so it's 20 years ago. It's true. We were on the edge of recording with Integrity Music here in America. And, of course, we're down under. Like, you know, it was already amazing that people were reaching out to us. And so the week that it was about to happen, and I still don't even understand it. I still, to this day, don't understand it. But our worship leader walked out. It literally walked out, like literally left my life, left our lives, and and he was like a best friend. So there was huge grief involved. And but the incredible thing in it all is that the only person I could turn to was a lady called Darlene Check. And of course, Darlene Check is well known now around the globe. So I kind of, as well as I could, gently pushed her forward. I rang Integrity Music, and incredibly, they'd never had a woman lead one of their projects at that time. So it was kind of a big thing for them. But it turned out to be an amazing story.
An amazing story, and we are all the more blessed because of it. And it was a Romans 8:28 moment, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here. Brian's going to stay on our campus a little while longer. He's going to be our featured speaker in the final service of our 7 Days Ablaze celebration. You can watch his sharing at noon Eastern by going to cbn.com. And for more, get his book. It is called Live, Love, Lead, and I love the subtitle, Your Best Is Yet to Come. Jesus came to set the captive free. Let's walk in that. This is available nationwide. Brian, wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.